Today, we will be talking about how to solve the chicken and egg problem of multi-sided platform. Yes, finally, it is often the toughest hurdle for founders of marketplaces and other network effect businesses. There are many resources online sharing about the different hacks and different approaches. For example, here is the 19 tactics from NFX on how to solve this problem.
We thought, if you look at all these different methods, you can actually see there are some underlying principles. So the first one, which we call the single side mode, the idea is like you want to attract initial base of users on one side by making them willing to join, even if they expect there's no one else, or very few users on the other side. That's the principle that you're trying to use. You're trying to get people on one side, even though they might not expect anyone else to be there on the other side.
And there are some interesting information service or something like that. So I think an example we had was Credit Karma, which is a platform that matches people with potential lenders. So they have basically, you can go as a person, you can go there and just check your free credit score, which has standalone value. Or even more clearly, what you could do is just offer. So instead of saying, I want to become a marketplace, but I'm going to start by offering a standalone product or service to one side.
They are going to do it themselves. They're going to manually fulfill demand, but they don't actually have those suppliers. So it's somewhere in between the completely fake and the legitimate approaches.
But as you said, post Alibaba self-created, generating some activity and buzz, on the marketplace, to create a perception that something is going on. I mean, it's the same like the bot too, isn't it? Because in some way the bot is pinging you of something's going on.
But I think there's a debate. I think that's the difference I'm talking about. So actually, Alibaba, I think that's fine because again, they're not promising you something that it's not. They generate activity which is legit activity. Even though it's legit activity, it's just them buying from each other, right? It's like the company, but that's legit. It's actually PayPal had this too, by the way. They got everyone in the company to open a PayPal account and do transactions to one another to say, hey, we have all this money that got transferred on PayPal last month. But that's fine. It's legit. I mean, of course, then you can misrepresent or something. But I still think there's a difference between that and the really annoying bots. I mean, this would be I think the dating websites do this too, where they create fake profiles. And then you try to talk to them, and at some point, you just figure out there's nothing behind it. I mean, that's annoying, right? I mean, just people. So that was dangerous because people will leave. Once people figure it, I mean, you have to be stupid. After a while, you probably realize you will just leave.
I watched that movie on Netflix. I think what is it? The Clickbait, right? And it said that actually dating website actually buy all this. They can buy all the dating profile from some old database to use. Yeah. That's essentially is in your categorization faking one side, isn't it? You can buy lots of fake dating profiles from some database.
Right, and that's what Andre is saying is, it's more like the bots, right? It's the extreme version, which is not. It's a dangerous strategy. You risk turning off customers.
Yeah. Okay.
I think Alibaba and PayPal did. It doesn't risk turning off customers because these are legitimate transactions. It may risk, it's a bit shady when it comes to investors, right? If you're telling investors I have all this activity and actually the activity is just you guys buying from each other, that to me is a little bit shady. But from the customer's perspective, it's fine.
And then customers know, if I want, I'll just go there. Well, that actually maximizes liquidity. Yeah, it's not just giving the impression, it's you actually making it happen. So there's lots of examples like this.
Yeah, and I think that one's totally legitimate. And indeed, you may even want to do that if it's a synchronous type matching. You might even want to do that forever, right? Even when you have a lot of liquidity. If you think about stock markets, they typically have a window in which they're open for that reason, to maximize liquidity.
Yep.
So therefore what you're saying was that Uber in the beginning hired one side because they needed to match the liquidity, and that's the reason why they hire one side, they hire the supply side in the beginning.
That's right. If Uber says, well, we're only going to have drivers between 9 and 10 o'clock, then it's going to be a very desirable service for most people.
For me, actually, that's one of the most important things. As you know, a startup, they are always limited in time resources. The ability to focus really come from the deciding of the narrow and deciding of the location and how do you decide and, the details. Because that ties back to your 4 categories, really, because that's when they're saying, okay, what is the tactic we're going to use to do this narrow, to make this narrow segment work? And then how does that work? again, obviously I'm big on the whole execution sequence because everything has to lead to something that's easier to the next one. And deciding on the narrow segment and the right one to prioritize is actually where I think you see when the startup talk about it, you see how much they really understand the market itself. There's certain criteria to know whether there's a good enough market, as a potentiality, to why you want to start it and all, right? So, but yet you still have people going very narrow and you don't know whether they're narrow is just because they're starting on one category first or that's what they thought is it. Many new market categories and subcategories of suppliers and players will need to emerge and be deployed to help achieve net zero by 2050. So I thought I choose a solar marketplace, solar panel marketplace, an example of startup. And this startup actually wrote to us in response to your product to platform promise.
Fundamentally, you do need one of these four, like at least one of these four, because otherwise you just haven't solved the issue.
Right. A lot of the lists that you see out there with strategies to solve the chicken and egg problem, they mix up solutions that are from one of these four different methods that we've been through and other things you could do, which are not really about solving the chicken and egg problem. They're just general strategies that you can use to obviously get more marketing, right? Like free press.
But they would not be enough. They would not be enough on their own, right? I mean, I think that's the key. Is like on their own, this would not be enough. So let's say, we give some examples. For instance, like one that we give is like, do some clever marketing that gives the impression of exclusivity. It's like join that, like, I don't know, something like Clubhouse did initially, right? It's like, it's invite only. And it's, basically like, it's whatever, it's on the iPhone. Well, that's great. And I'm sure that it creates some like, people kind of like was a fear of missing out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But by itself, that's not going to cut it, right? I mean, you still need to give some incentive, like, okay, why do I want to be there in the first place? So I think the answer in the case of Clubhouse was probably something like bring your own supply or demand. So like they got very famous people to go and create rooms and people would follow them there.
Well, in some way, yeah, some of them, as you said, right, it is some form of creating virality, and that's when you said also that's where the confusion comes in, where people mistaken these tactics of creating virality got to do with, some form of the network effects, right? And it's probably good also that people, use some of these tactics to sort of create virality at the end of the day, because you want to get on board a lot of the different players quickly on both sides, right? And getting the sides are really important for the liquidity at the end of the day to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you can think of it as, these other ways of speeding up the process once you've sort of got this strategy to solve the chicken and egg problem, but now you want to speed that up. Want everything to happen faster, then you can think about all these other things you could do, like referral programs, getting free press. There's a bunch of things that are fairly obvious.